Hi and welcome to the £400 studio. It was never my intention when I started this to build a studio for under £400. I was thinking let's do a nice high quality but budget studio for within £1,000, within $1,000. But as I went on, it's incredible value you can get if you buy a couple of really good, high quality, small, new items and then mix them with some really good value second-hand bargains. There's lots of stuff that you'll be told you definitely need, which are nice as an add-on, but there's stuff that you really will need. Some of it has to be really high quality, like your monitors. Some other stuff at first you can get away with not using the best quality, but you're still going to get fantastic results for the money. So what is necessary to get results from home? Well, anything to do with getting the sound into a computer. So a microphone, maybe a mixer, definitely an audio interface, and obviously the computer itself. Once you've recorded it, you'll want to be able to listen back to it, and you want to listen back to it on a quality system. So we're looking at monitors and headphones as well. So yeah, I'm going to be assuming that you're going to be recording something live, so you will need a microphone. If you're doing EDM stuff, well, you might not need the microphone or the mixer, but you will definitely need an audio interface. You'll need to hear what's coming out of your mix in really good detail, and your headphone output isn't sufficient. Whether we need a mix or not, I'm also going to talk about. Most people don't need one. I've got a really, really cheap one here. In fact, it's still got its sticker on from when I bought it. I've used it that infrequently, so basically most people aren't going to need it. So a couple of quick tips before we start. The first thing is do research, which is what you're doing now by watching this. So congratulations. But after you've watched this, you should hopefully have a much clearer understanding of what's best for you, what sort of mic you'll need, how many mics, what sort of interface, if you need a mixer or not. So we'll come up with suggestions for what you might need and how to look for it and whether you should buy new or whether you should buy used. The £400 studio has a definite bundle in there and some ideas about used monitors and a used laptop. But if you've done your homework and you understand the market, you can definitely pick up a bargain, which is where my second top tip comes in, which is definitely don't be afraid of looking at the used market. But before we get into the hardware, we'll need some software for the computer. The good news is that you can get stuff absolutely free. I've just downloaded this for the PC. Let's see if I can get it. It's Cakewalk. Just type Cakewalk Sonar into Google. It'll take you to Bandcamp. And Bandcamp have purchased Cakewalk Sonar, and you log into their account or create an account with them, and you can get it absolutely free. It's amazing. And there you go, Cakewalk for BandLab is free. BandLab's a bit like a social network for bands, a bit like a SoundCloud. Downloading, great. For Mac and PC, you can download Pro Tools first, which is like a 16-track cut-down version of Pro Tools, but my recommendation will be the Harrison Mixbus. So here's Harrison Mixbus, or harrisonconsoles.com, and they make Mixbus, and it's based on their analog and digital desks. They make high-end desks, so Thriller was recorded on one. That's sort of pretty high-end. I think the Spider-Man soundtrack, it says on their website, was recorded by one. And if you look at this video made on their homepage, you can see examples of their analogs. There's another large-scale analog. There's obviously a digital console. I think they've modelled the EQs and the non-linearities of the desk, and they thought actually if we throw on a sequencer front end, we've got a DAW ready made. And it's amazing value for what it is. One of its big selling points is actually that it's based around a large format console. So if you're used to using large format consoles, you should be able to find your way around this DAW really simply. But if you're setting up a home studio, I'm not sure that's going to be your first concern. So there's two versions. One's a bit cheaper. This one's $79, but if you subscribe to their email list, you can get it for about $39 at the minute. And the other version models their EQs in more detail, basically. So here we go. Here's the deal I've got at the minute, which is £38, including tax for the lighter version. The full version is, I think it's $300, but at the minute I've got a code for $149. So it's really, really amazing value. £38 for a really good DAW on a Mac or for your PC. It's free. So we're not talking big money here, are we? So starting at the beginning of the signal change, let's talk about microphones, and I've got a few basic guidelines for buying mics. If you stick to these, you can't go far wrong. The first is stick to a manufacturer that makes high quality studio mics. Now that might seem like a really, really obvious statement, but you don't want to buy a budget mic from a budget manufacturer. A decent manufacturer isn't one to going to ruin their reputation by making a really bad microphone. So the likes of Rode, MXL, AKG, Aston, SE Electronics, Audio-Technica, Samsung. These all spring to mind, the quality manufacturers that make really good budget mics. There'll be others out there. You know, you can't go wrong if you're buying a budget mic from one of these guys. So look at Rhodes, for example. Let's go into their products, studio mics. So I've got a few Rode mics. I've got the NTK, which is an old valve version they do. I've got the M3, which is a dynamic mic. I've also got some that I record the videos with. I've got the iPad IXY. I've got that one there and this stereo one. I often use the Lavalier mics for recording the YouTube videos. You know, they've got a really good name. As far as I recall, they were the first manufacturer to do a really high quality budget mic, which was the NT1. I remember when that came out, and I think it rocked the market a bit. And luckily for us now, there's a lot more competition in that market, so you've got a lot more choice. So looking on Google, there we go, the Rode NT1. There's a bundle that comes up, and that's £135. And what does that include? It includes a mic stand, a boom stand, so they're worth about £20. A pop shield, which is £10. Cable, say another £5. So when you start adding all that together, the mic's coming in at around £100. We've even got a shock mount there. I'm not a big fan of shock mounts. I'm not sure what, you know, I know why people use them, but I've never actually used one. But here you go. This is doing the research. Like I said earlier, you know, if you do that, you know when you get a good deal. Because look at this, Amazon, £125 for the mic itself. You know, I mean, I'm sure if you're going to buy stuff, you're obviously going to start looking at the prices. But it's just worth hammering home that message, I think. And on eBay, if you're looking there, it's always good to look at how much it's actually sold for rather than how much people want or think you're going to get a really good bargain because the bidding hasn't started yet. But it's around £100 for an NT1. The MXL 990 is another good one. Here we've got it for $79.99 from Gear for Music in the UK. So that's good value. Let's look for a review of them to check it's not an awful mic. So here's a Sound on Sound review. Sound on Sound's like the audio Bible, isn't it? You know, really trust these guys. As a vocal mic, it produces a subjectively neutral and nicely balanced sound. I've used it on a serious session with a respected New Zealand female vocalist and it suited her voice very well. So that sounds like a pretty decent review to me. I'd feel confident buying this knowing I was getting something that wasn't going to be terrible. It was going to be a really pretty decent mic. So what do they go for used? Let's have a look at eBay. There we go. We've got a set there for £53. There's two mics now. I don't know what the second one does. Down there, £30. £30. That's ridiculous. And then we've got one. Where's another one? £50. And it's got the shock mount and it's in the case. So these are really good value. These, we're not spending an awful lot of money on a good quality mic, are we? Let's have a look at the Samsung C1. Let's take a look at the Sound on Sound review, £79. Noisier than some of its competitors. Sometimes they have the competitors down at the bottom, which is always a good place to sort of look at other options. Tonally, it's got a sound associated with this type of mic in direct comparison with his Rode NT1. The NT1 is now a sort of a staple Project Studio standard. Overall, it's got almost everything going for it, from UK price quality to finish and sound. Brilliant, and for £79, can't go wrong. So let's see how much they actually cost in the real world. Here we go, £45. God, that's ridiculous. So we're really not going to break the bank buying a half decent mic. But, you know, you can go more expensive. You know, can look at buying a more expensive model, a used version of a more expensive one. So let's take a look at an AKG C3000, for example. It was my first proper condenser mic, my first release. Had that on it and no one asked what sort of mic I used. Here we go, 124, is that new? £100, that one for £100 in the middle, that's exactly what I used. And we've got a new £106, so that's fantastic value. Interesting that Amazon at the top of the page there is offering to sell me one for £175. But yeah, for between £50 and £100, you're going to get yourself a decent mic. And yes, I know they're not going to sound as good as these €700, €800 mics, but they really will sound pretty decent. Some guidelines are stick to a quality manufacturer, stick to one that's been designed for musical performance, not one that's been designed for, as like a USB mic for podcasting. Get a condenser, you're always going to get a better performance from a condenser. Check the reviews from a respected reviewer, somewhere like Sound on Sound. Be aware that some shops will put a review that's put by the manufacturer on, so that's not really a review, is it? And finally, I would steer clear of online discussions on forums, because you tend to get people on there that, I don't know, maybe they get a bit annoyed that you can now get stuff that costs a fraction of the price of what they paid and does pretty much the same job. Oh, there's my C3000, $280 new, so that £106 was a bit of a good bargain, wasn't it? I've looked at prices in pounds, euros and dollars, and they're all really like much of a likeness with currency conversions. There's a couple that seem a bit more expensive on different sides of the Atlantic, but generally, if you know your currency conversion, these prices will stand. So next up, after looking at microphones and the options, there's my couple of dynamics. There's my SM58, the Rode M3, the Valve mic and the Aston. There's the mixing desk. And the mixing desk then goes into the audio interface, and the question really is, do we need both? And the answer to that is not necessarily, probably not. If you're recording multiple instruments at the same time, well, yes you will, but most people don't. Most people record a vocal at a time, or a vocal and then the guitar, or the guitar then the vocal. However, when you're doing that, when you're recording your vocals, it's nice to have a little bit of delay or reverb in the mix so you can hear how your vocal sits in the mix. This helps with the performance, it helps you with your performance, and more importantly, if you get other people around to your studio to ask them to contribute, and they've used other studios before, they're more than likely going to be used to having this, and it'll be really strange to come to yours and not be able to hear it nicely in a mix. You're not going to get the best performance out of people. And what's been done since the dawn of time, since caveman first went into recording studios, is to record your vocal into a channel, and then that channel will send an effects return to, or an effects send to an effects unit, and that comes back into the desk, and your vocal is recorded direct to what was tape and is now the audio interface, and your delay or your reverb isn't heard, it's only heard in the headphones, it's not recorded to tape. Which means you can then add reverb as you like when you're mixing later on. But I hear you cry, I've got a DAW and I've got loads of really nice effects units. Why can't I use them? Well, there's something called latency, which means that when you record something into your computer, it then does some processing, and that processing takes time before the audio comes back out and you hear it. And what you get then is you get a slight delay. So through your headphones you're hearing your voice slightly delayed from when you sang it, and it's just infuriating. It makes it really impossible to get a good performance out of anyone. But this is where it starts getting complicated, because some mixers have them built in like this one does. Other mixers are USB interfaces as well, so you just need the one built-in interface USB mixer. So here's just the first thing that popped up on Google, a site in the UK with a huge selection of mixers that are USB interfaces. Some of them got DSP, so maybe that's got actually built-in effects as well. So 16 bus, and also going to like a Soundcraft Signature analog mix with USB, £340. So the price is going up and up as we look at this. Look at this Mackie one there for £1,600. So that's obviously a whole massive review in itself. You'll know how many mic inputs you need, how many instruments you need, how many things you're recording at the same time. So in this, I'm really going to concentrate on most people who will be using a studio that will be recording one thing at a time, and maybe occasionally recording something in stereo. So coming back to the sort of sub 1,000 setup I've got here, this is a Behringer 1662. They cost about £90 to £99. This is in pristine condition if anyone wants to buy it. And the audio interface I'm using is a Focusrite Sapphire Pro 24. I'll just change the autofocus so you can actually see this. It's got 4 inputs. It's got 2 mic preamps at the front. These are really good, nice, pristine preamps. People that say you need really expensive ones really annoy me. You don't. Most interfaces have got really good preamps these days. And if you don't know what a preamp is, it's essentially something that takes the signal from your microphone and increases it so that it works at the same level as everything else. So spoken about sound going in from your microphone into your desk, and then your desk into your audio interface that gets it into your computer. So let's talk a little bit more about the audio interfaces. I'd suggest most of you are only recording one track at a time, whether that's your vocal then a guitar, or a guitar then a vocal, or maybe just a vocal on top of some backing track, but nothing really that needs more than one input. It's how most people I've known in the industry have worked, so there's absolutely nothing wrong with realising you don't need loads of inputs or output, and there's nothing less professional about having a small number of ins and outs these days. You can get really professional results from very small interfaces that use the same quality preamps and signal path as professional multi-input output devices. So what am I talking about? Well, I've just shown you my Focusrite Sapphire Pro 24, and that's got the same essential basic preamps as the Liquid Pro 56. And these are amazing. This is the high-end Pro Bitter kit, and it's got the same preamps as the Pro 24. Yes, it's got the Liquid ones that do sort of special things as well, but the basic electronics in there is the same. So they're a bit long in the tooth. Today we've got the Scarlett range. So there's got the Scarlett Solo, that's you can record one. It's got one mic preamp in there, one instrument at a time. So a lot of people might be satisfied with that. But I would suggest maybe moving up to the Scarlett 2i2. That's 2 in, 2 out. So that's more flexible, and it will allow you as you grow to record well. If you want to do a recording of a live gig, for example, you'll want it in stereo. So I'd go with a 2 in, or 2 in, 2 out, which is a 2i2. And these are around £110 or $130. They even do a starter kit. So if we look here, so yeah, there you go, £105. Here we go. Yeah, you get a microphone thrown in, and it's not one of the microphones I was talking about, but like I was saying about the microphones, Focusrite, they're a respected company. They're not going to sell something that's really trashy, because they're not going to sell something bad to entry-level consumers who might eventually be buying stuff for professional studios. So I'd trust that. It also comes with a set of headphones as well. Let's have a look. And they're going to be fine. They're closed back, which means they're good for the recording. I'll talk a little bit about headphones in a minute. So that's £176. What was the other one? The Rode one, the £135 one. But the Focusrite's actually got a microphone thrown in. So all of a sudden you start thinking, actually, the Rode NT bundle had a mic stand thrown in. This has got a mic but hasn't got a stand. So that's why I'm not going to tell you exactly what to buy. Different bundles might come up and there might be different deals, but if you've got a head full of knowledge, you should be prepared to jump when a deal appears. So £135 for the Rode deal, plus £105 it was for the Focusrite 2i2 we saw. That's if we go without the bundle. But, you know, we're looking at £240 now. We've got a mic, we've got a stand, we've got an interface, we've got a pop shield. But I hear you shout, what about this latency you were talking all about? What's that all about? Am I going to record with a nice bit of reverb if I've got this latency issue? Well, the beauty of the Scarletts is that you don't get the latency issues. So let's click this Find Out More button, shall we? And here they've got a beautiful little video. I won't play it because I'm probably breaking all sorts of copyright laws, but it'll give you a really good idea of what I was talking about earlier with latency. I really thought I was going to recommend buying second-hand interfaces and mixers when I started this a couple of days ago, but having looking at the equipment that's available now, absolutely not. I think you really should go with an up-to-date interface because they'll have more longevity. They'll keep up to date with operating system updates over the next few years. So yeah, I'd go with new. Unless you're recording multiple instruments, in which case a USB mixer or a used interface with more inputs would give you more flexibility. So let's just round up what we've discussed so far. If we went for the Rode NT1 mic bundle, that's £135. That even includes the stand and the pop shield. And if we went with the used mixer, which I'm not recommending for everyone, but that'd be £90, and the interface would be a top on about £70, which is £295. What's that? About $360. So if we went a little bit cheaper, I'm not saying this is worse quality, we went for the Samson C1. That mic was £41. Accessories being the pop shield, the stand and a cable, another £35, a U mixer and a used interface. We're coming to around £236. So what's that? It's $300. It's, you know, it's incredibly cheap. If we stick with that mic, there's nothing wrong with that mic, and we get the solo interface, so it's only recording one instrument or one vocal at a time. That's £78. That's a total of £154. That's a $200 mark. It's incredible. Now let's change the interface to the Focusrite 2i2. So you're getting two Focusrite preamps there, and it's £181, which is less than $240. It's unbelievable value for money. So from lovely, shiny, spanking, brand new kit to something old and battered looking. This is a Lenovo G50. It's about 4 years old, but it's perfectly acceptable. For recording CD quality, don't forget we're doing demos here. We're not in a high-end studio. 44.1 at 16-bit. I mean, people argue about going to 24-bit and 48 kilohertz. It's your first studio. Don't worry about that. And I'll probably do that anyway, but this is amazing. I mean, I'm using, to record some of this, I'm using this Mac. Don't go near them. You need about £1,000 to spend on accessories just to plug stuff in. That lead I've got there going from the Sapphire Pro's got, it's probably about £60 worth of connectors in it. Stick to a PC, honestly. Amazing value for money. £100 this is. I've looked on eBay. 100 quid. Come on. Which is why I'm including them in this roundup. Lots of people don't have them. If you're at college, you know, you might have an iPad, you might have an iPhone, you might use the college's computers, but you might not have your own laptop. Lots of people do. If you do, great, knock £100 off the bill that comes to at the end. But you've got more money to spend on monitors. Fantastic. But yeah, this is perfectly acceptable. So if you don't believe me, here we are on ebay.com. So that was the UK site I looked at. I've just looked at this now. We've got $61, one for parts or repair, and 98, so I don't know what's wrong with it. $186, so that's probably about 130, 140 pounds. $48, $159, $50. This is what they've been sold at. The green means it's been sold at that. 104, 150, 92. I'm not making these numbers up. The issues you used to have with really old computers was because they have all weird old connections. These have got USB. They'll work with USB interfaces. If they'll run Windows 10, you'll be fine. So our total now is around £280 or $350, and I could do a review saying, look, $350, £280 studio, and that includes your laptop. And just a quick tip about aging laptops. If you've got one and you want to improve its performance, a really good way of doing that is replacing the hard drives. This is the old hard drive, and that's a new SSD one. They're about £100 now. It's a great way of updating an aging laptop. It works brilliantly, and it doesn't have much. It's just a nice little upgrade you can do at a later date to get more performance out of an old laptop. So we've got our sound into the computer, we got the microphone, we got the interface, and we got the computer itself, but we really do need to hear what we're doing when we're doing that. So we need a pair of headphones for singing at least. So what sort should we get? Well, this sort here is called open backings. It's got like a grill on the back, and what it means is that you can hear leakage when you're singing. So you don't want this sort for doing singing, but they're really good for monitoring. They've got a really good flat frequency response there. DT880s, I think they're about £180, so you know, a bit expensive for this. But these are closed back. I've had these for years and years. The Sony 7509s. They're closed back, which means that when they're on the singer's head, you don't get spillage into the mic. So these are really good. And when you hang them up, look at these ones here, they close over. They used to close over better when I first got them, but that means if they're hanging on a microphone in the studio, you're not hearing the spillage coming through, which could upset you if you're trying to do some monitoring. You can hear these little fizzy hi-hats coming through from somewhere. If you're not using them for mixing, you're only using them to record for a vocalist, where you really don't need a decent pair at all. Anything that's comfortable on the vocalist's head, so £20, £30, you know, $50, you know, any half decent pair of headphones will do you for that. So remember the Scarlett bundle we saw earlier that had the microphone and headphones? That might be something that you might want to think about now. It was £176, so add £30 for the mic stand and the pop shield, and you're still only at £206. So the last setup I looked at was £181, wasn't it? So this is £25 more, but includes headphones. So that sounds like a pretty good deal to me. If you are using them for monitoring your mix and mixing purposes, you do want to make sure you get ones with a flat frequency response, and the prices of these start rocketing. So studio headphones are what you're after. So things like AKG, Shure, Beyerdynamic. We've got Sennheiser here as this as well. You want to make sure you're getting studio headphones that give a flat response rather than hi-fi headphones that flatter your mix. So Beats, for example, they're renowned for having a really big bass response. That's not what you need. You need a flat response for mixing a track. The trouble is here, there's no real cheap way of doing this. Once you start looking at good ones, the costs go through the roof. And I understand that you can't really mix at volume if you're living in your parents' house, if you're living in a flat, if you're living with housemates. Flat is British for apartment, by the way, but most mix engineers don't really listen at really high volumes. Not all the time. It'll wreck your ears for a start. So learn to mix at lower volumes. But yeah, at times you do need to feel the power of a mix, but you're never going to get that anyway in a home studio. This is why people end up going to master and mix in a big studio. Even if you've heard of a famous artist that's recorded at home, they'll have always mastered it in a big studio. But you're never really going to get that in a home studio. You can only guess at that. But it doesn't mean you can't do good professional sounding mixes with what you've got. So remember, a flat response, studio headphones, and you want them with a closed back so that you don't get spillage when you're recording vocalists. So looking at some prices, the MDR 7506 Sonys are £87. They're sort of newer versions of the one I've got. Beyerdynamic DT770, they should be good. £100 again. Vocal Spirit, they make good monitors, so looking at 162, 229. So, you know, look for a reverb pair if you can. But the point is here, if you're going to try and monitor through headphones, they are going to get expensive. Not talking about computer monitors here, I'm talking about great big speakers, something that you can turn up and hear. I've just told you shouldn't turn them up, but you know, let's have some fun. It's music. So there's no point in recording something really well, putting it in your computer, and then messing it up with terrible mixing because you can't hear what's going on, and you play it back to somebody and it sounds muddy. You can't hear your performance, you can't hear the instruments, and everything just sounds muddy and washed out. And that's probably because you've mixed it using hi-fi speakers. And here is where you really shouldn't scrimp on your money. If your budget's $1,000 or £1,000 and we've just spent £350, spend $650 on your monitors. Sounds crazy, but it makes a massive difference. You can really hear what you're doing, you know, and you might decide after doing that, oh, you know, I need a better mic, or I need to get some better effects, or I need a speak. But it's only because you can hear that. If you can't hear it, you've got no idea. I've had the experience of this. I had a few releases out and they came out on 12-inch in clubs, and I'd be in a club and hear and think, wow, here's my track. Why doesn't it sound as good as all the others? It sounds all right. And then I bought myself a nice pair of DIN Audio BM10s. Like, that's why they sounded better, because they could hear what was happening and I couldn't. And as soon as I got home, listening through the BM10s, like, I can now hear what I could hear in the clubs. I could hear that my mixer sounded muddy, but through the hi-fi speakers, they sounded gorgeous and lush. So you need monitors, and you need the best you can get. So I'm just scrolling through here. It's a shop called Anderton's in the UK, and it's really nicely laid out to see all the speakers they've got. So that's why I'm scrolling through them. But if I've got a budget of 700 and I've spent 350, I'd look for a monitor for 350 or possibly a little bit more. And I'd also look at buying used. I'll have a look at some used ones later. There's some really good bargains you can get. But as with microphones, the budget end of the market is brilliant these days. You're going to be much better off spending £200-300 on a studio monitor than spending £400 or £500 on a hi-fi speaker. As with headphones or microphones, I'd always suggest going for a well-known brand, and a brand that does high-end gear. So brands such as Adam Audio, Focal do great speakers, great Project Studio speakers as well. Neumann, I've got some Neumanns myself. I've got these ones. Event, brilliant. These are all great. Genelec. Who have I got here? Oh, DIN Audio. I've had a few, or DIN or Dyn Audio, I'm not sure how you say it. I've had a few sets of these, and these are fabulous. You can't go wrong with sets of these. Yamaha, of course, and another one, which is a bit of an oddball, Monroe Sonic. I sold my Monroe Sonic eggs. Really sorry I did. Fantastic. They're just amazing. They just don't sound like anything else. Well, they're just sort of so big and clear, and they're sort of these tiny little eggs. I was absolutely amazed when I first listened to them. But yeah, so go for a well-known brand that does high-end stuff, and then look for their Project Studio version. So the Monroe Sonics, for example, they do a 100 system, which you can pick up for about, let's have a look. Monroe Sonic egg, £459. So this gear for music keeps on popping up. £459 for them. You know, they will be fabulous. Look at these, £650, the £2,000 new. There might be a slightly older version, but come on, this is a special edition that stand on the sides, fantastic. But these are going to sound absolutely fabulous. You'll hear every little detail in the mixer. God, I want them. Okay, let's see what's being sold. Let's look at the brands and what brands we'd look at. So, yeah. Adam, wouldn't go with 8kg. Good for headphones, think. I don't know anything about their monitors. DIN Audio, of course. I only got rid of mine because they weren't powered and the amp broke, and I couldn't get a good enough amp for a reasonable price. So I went for powered monitors after that, which is what we look at here, so you don't get any confusion about what power is being supplied to what speaker, and you don't want to blow your speakers through that. So I went and bought a pair of Neumann. Have we got some Neumann here? Yes, there we go. Oh yeah, Mackie. Oh, KRK, I should have brought those up before. Yamaha, Genelec. Yeah, we'll just go with those for now. It'll prove my point on that, there's really good bargains to be had if you're prepared to buy a used set. So we'll pick active ones. And let's go from 350 to 750. So assuming your budget's, between 700 and 1100 for the whole studio. So here we go. Adam A7Xs for less than 675. K-Rock Rockets for 84. My friend's got a set of them. They're really nice. There's another set of Rockets for 187. Judanelics for 670. You don't have to spend that much money. It's good if you can spend up to 670. There's more Rockets for 180. Mackie CR3s, Rockets for 296. Are they new? Really good value here. So Yamaha MSP5s though, I had a pair of these. I really liked them. I think they cost about £500 new. £75? That's ridiculous. So if your budget was $500 and you've bought everything I've suggested so far, you can afford the MSP5s. You're doing amazingly well here. So it's coming to under £400. I've even added £20 to the computer. I'm really wondering what I've missed here, because this is phenomenal. Let's have a look at Adam A7Xs, shall we? They're currently around £900 a pair. So here we got sound on sound review. As with the microphones, doing a sanity check. No magnetic shielding around the woofer. Is that a big one? Well, if you've got some big old computer monitor, maybe, but probably not. Especially not if you're following this and you're buying a laptop. Excellent performance, blah, blah, blah. Sensibly priced at $795. How much did they go for on this? They've actually gone up about £100 since this review was written, which is unusual, and it's probably a good sign. Shows that the quality bit of kit. So 620, 500, 500. There you go. That's almost half price, and I bet they sound as good as the new ones. And the AX7s are in there for 205. Is that, they were the previous version, but £205. That's a good deal. So Neumann, I think Neumanns are brilliant. I've got a pair of the KH310s. His review is really good. So how much were they on this originally? Originally they were £858, and when was that? 2018. Wow. So they're new. How much did they go for? £560. Brilliant. Great bargain. So if your budget's around the £1,000 mark, get those rather than the MSP5s. Yamaha MSP10s, £1,258 for serious studio use, serious project studio use. So they're going to be really good. They're going to be fine. How much are they here? 320. That's a third. That's just, was it a quarter? 25% of the asking price. There's nothing wrong with buying new, but you're getting serious value for your money when you buy some second-hand bits of kit. I know what it's like when budgets are limited and you think, I'm spending my $500 on exactly the right thing, but at this price, and if you stick to these guidelines and you stick to these manufacturers, you're not going to go far wrong. You're not going to get a real turkey. You're not going to get an awful set of speakers. But if you look at something budget from a budget manufacturer, you're asking for trouble. The only other thing you might want to factor in is some nice speaker stands, but that's not hugely important. If you've got a nice, if you got a desk, stick them on the desk. And I know people will argue there's no point in getting a really expensive speaker and then sticking it on the desk. But at some point in the future, in the next few months, you can save up and get yourself a nice stand. Better to get the better speaker than to get a really good stand and a not very good speaker. So stick to the guidelines and it should be okay. So number one, stick to respected manufacturers. Do your homework so you know what you're getting, you know what you should be paying, and really do look at used bargains. There's thousands out there. Take your time and you'll definitely get something that you're looking for. Number four, spend as much as you can on this. This isn't where you scrimp and save. So what shouldn't you buy at this stage? Well, I think I've mentioned the shock mount. I've never used the shock mount. I've got one now. Still never used it. Reflection filters, they could cause more problems than they're worth. You've really got to be careful when you're using them. Acoustic paneling. I've got acoustic paneling and it's great, but when you're starting out, don't factor into the cost of the studio. Get that as an upgrade later on. They do look cool and they put you in the mood for being in a studio, but if you don't know what you're doing, you're completely wasting your money, and you could make things worse by, for example, putting a bass trap in the wrong place. I didn't have it for years, and I had stuff released that was recorded in a bedroom. It had a mattress, it had a duvet, it had curtains, so it had some soft furnishings, it had a rug, but it didn't have acoustic paneling. Also had a sofa, I think. I had quite a lot in that room. So we'll say it again, it's better to get all these fundamentals in place and spend as much money as you can on getting quality kit and then upgrade with the nice to haves afterwards. Another really useful tool for the studio is a compressor. Now, you probably know what a compressor does already, but it effectively squishes the signal a little bit so you don't get distortion when you're recording a vocal. That's what you'll be using it for initially. Once you get good in the studio, once you get more proficient, you might use it to make drums sound punchier. They can make a room sound livelier. They've got loads of really good creative uses, but you can get that in plugin form, and even in your free DAW or your very cheap DAW, you can get professional results. I've seen, if you watch future music videos, for example, with various people saying what plugins they use and how they do stuff, some people just don't care about the compressors. They might throw them on and they get a good enough sound, but they're not obsessed by them. So if you do decide to get one, or when you do decide to get one, the sort of previous guidelines still hold. Look for a decent manufacturer and look for their sort of budget range. So Drama DL241 is a great example of this. These are £600, or 664 here, €752. That's brand new at the minute, but you can get them cheaper if you shop around, especially if you look on eBay. So here's some that have been sold previously: 114, 98, 140, £100. These are £600 compressors, and they're like an industry staple. They've been making them for years, and they do the job really well. I picked one up for £120 about 6 months ago to help record a school performance for a favour for a friend, but I thought I better just get a compressor because I want to make sure when the kids play the piano it doesn't distort and they lose marks on their exams. But if you're in your studio, you can do another take, or you can just adjust the microphones to avoid it. You don't need to buy one now. But if you really want to get one, or you really think you need one, there are budget versions available, brand new. Behringer Art do a pretty good one as well. Alesis, they do a nice one. £137 brand new. The Behringer was £99 brand new. I've had a couple of the Behringers. They're fine for that sort of thing. So just to reiterate, there's nothing wrong with shock mount reflection filters, acoustic paneling and compressors, but you don't need them to start with. Out of these, which would my next buy be? I think it'd be the compressor first, followed by maybe some acoustic stuff. I've not got a reflection filter, and I've only just got a shock mount. I've never used one. So, these are things that you're told you need. Shock mounts and reflection filters I could quite happily live without. An acoustic treatment really does depend on individual situations, what you're recording, where you're recording, and what you want it to sound like. So I'm just wondering how to end this really, and I think I'm going to end on the under £400 studio. It wasn't what I set out to do originally, but it's what I've found, and I think it's a great idea. The monitors, obviously, that was a great deal on the £75, but if you look at other stuff, you can get them. You'll definitely get something around this sort of price. You might have a laptop already, in which case you can buy better monitors. So I hope that was useful to someone. It's a little bit different to my normal comparison videos looking at high-end bits of kit, but I really enjoyed doing this, and now I'm off to sell my Sapphire and buy a Scarlett.